What looked like a small, easily missed detail at a recent charity event was actually a devastating metaphor for the collapse of a global empire. There was no grand announcement, no dramatic press release from the streaming giants, and certainly no word from Buckingham Palace. But if you looked closely at the empty spaces behind the crowd control barriers, the strained smiles of executives, and the glaring absence of the star producer himself on set, the truth was undeniable. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are no longer the most sought-after couple in Hollywood. They are teetering on the brink of complete commercial irrelevance. This is the story of how arrogance, a lack of direction, and a staggering miscalculation of public goodwill led to a catastrophic fall from grace. And more importantly, it is the story of how the British royal family is currently executing a flawless, silent masterclass in ultimate revenge. By the end of this, you will understand exactly how a quiet, seemingly unrelated television project, spearheaded by a former rugby player in West London, is actually a targeted strike against the Sussexes. You will see why the Invictus Games, Prince Harry's last remaining fortress of public credibility, is quietly slipping from his grasp. You will understand the dark psychological truth behind their commercial desperation, a desperation that has forced them to leverage their past until there is nothing left to sell. And you will see how a family they tried to publicly dismantle is now orchestrating their total professional isolation without ever uttering a single public word against them. To understand the magnitude of this current collapse, we must first look back at the golden era. Just a few short years ago, Harry and Meghan held a level of cultural power that money simply cannot buy. When they stepped away from the monarchy, the narrative was entirely theirs to command. They were framed as the ultimate modern survivors, armed with global sympathy, an aura of prestige and unprecedented leverage in the entertainment industry. When they signed their colossal multi-year deal with Netflix, they were essentially handed a blank check. They had the ability to command any director, any global location, and any creative team they desired. They possessed the kind of industry capital that veteran producers spend a lifetime chasing. They had the wealth and the platform to build an enduring, untouchable legacy. But almost immediately, a fatal moral contradiction began to show. Instead of laying a solid foundation, instead of utilizing the deep television experience that existed within their own estranged family tree, Meghan seemingly decided that she alone knew best. Industry insiders have quietly noted that had the couple taken a slower, more deliberate path, perhaps introducing audiences to a lifestyle brand first and easing the public into their new Californian reality, the outcome might have been entirely different. It would have built sustainable trust, but driven by what appears to be a volatile mix of inexperience and the urgent need for global dominance. They chose a path of instant scorched earth visibility. They bypassed the slow build and drove straight into the explosive Oprah, Winfrey interview, and the polarizing Royal Takedown documentary series. While those early moves shattered global viewing records, they also shattered something much more fragile and impossible to buy back. They shattered their mystique. They traded long-term respect for short-term sensationalism. And once the family secrets were exhausted, the public was left looking at what remained beneath the surface. And what remained was a staggering lack of creative direction and an alarming inability to produce anything that did not rely on complaining about the institution they had just fled. This brings us to the recent string of undeniable commercial failures where the facade truly began to crack. Consider the deeply uncomfortable spectacle of their Invictus documentary. What should have been a soaring, emotionally resonant tribute to wounded veterans felt to many viewers like a thinly veiled vehicle for personal rebranding. The subtle visual cues were devastating. The sight of a former television actress treating the hallowed ground of a veterans event like a personal runway, walking ahead of wounded soldiers in designer shorts, did not resonate as empowering or compassionate. It resonated as staggering exploitation. The public saw a moral contradiction playing out in real time. The ratings reflected that widespread discomfort, failing to generate the cultural momentum or the financial returns their streaming partners so desperately needed. But the true depth of this crisis was exposed with the recent Polo project. Executives were reportedly stunned to discover that Prince Harry, the marquee name and the executive producer of the show, barely featured in the footage. The prevailing attitude from the Sussex camp seemed to be that the mere association of his royal title and a few brief cameo appearances would be enough to guarantee a global hit. It was a staggering display of arrogance, reflecting a profound misunderstanding of how the entertainment industry actually works. The untouched glasses at VIP tables and the indifferent reactions of bystanders at their recent public outings have become the visual markers of a fading brand. It is the tragic reality of believing your own press long after the public has stopped reading it. And just as this commercial desperation reached its absolute peak, a dark shadow fell over Prince Harry's most sacred territory. For years, the Invictus Games has been his unquestionable triumph, the one noble initiative that even his harshest critics genuinely respected. It was his shield against accusations of selfishness. But survival in the highly competitive non-profit sector requires a pristine, uncomplicated public image, and Harry's current image is a heavy, polarizing liability. The board members of Invictus are not blind. They see the commercial failures, they see the brand toxicity, and they know that associating with a couple constantly embroiled in media warfare threatens their own funding and survival. Enter Mike Tyndall. On the surface, Mike Tyndall is simply a former professional rugby player, a relatable, humorous, grounded man who happens to be married to the king's niece, Zara Phillips. He calls a spade he is deeply embedded in the sporting world, and he possesses a natural, unforced charisma. But beneath that jovial exterior lies the exact kind of authentic, drama-free appeal that Prince Harry has entirely lost. Recently, word began to leak out of West London about a new project. Tyndall is spearheading the revitalization of the Richmond Rugby Club. It is a location steeped in British cultural history, a beloved local institution where rock legends once rehearsed. But what began as a grassroots revitalization effort is rapidly evolving into something much larger. It is becoming a major television documentary series. And here is where the story shifts from mere coincidence to a devastating, calculated strategic maneuver. This new series is not going to Netflix, a platform that is now heavily associated with royal grievances and commercial exhaustion. It is reportedly being developed with Amazon Prime. The contrast is sharp, intentional, and deeply humiliating for the Sussexes. On one side, you have an aristocratic exile and his wife struggling to manufacture authenticity while alienating Hollywood executives. On the other side, you have a genuine sports legend, universally liked, doing real community work with a major rival streaming platform. But the true danger for Harry goes far beyond streaming numbers and platform rivalries. The Invictus Games board is watching this development very closely. They are looking at the heavy, complicated baggage that Harry and Meghan bring to their international events. And now they are looking directly at Mike Tyndall and Zara. They see a couple who naturally embodies the rugged athletic and honorable branding that a veteran sports charity desperately needs. They see a couple who can walk among athletes without turning the event into a fashion show or a PR crisis. And worst of all, for Prince Harry, this new rugby project carries the silent but absolute blessing of the highest powers within the monarchy. The Prince and Princess of Wales do not need to issue a combative public statement to destroy Harry's final fortress. Catherine, deeply passionate about rugby, could simply show up to launch the pavilion. William could easily attend a charity match. They are using the sheer weight of their unbothered positive presence to elevate someone else. As the cameras prepare to roll in West London, a devastating realization is dawning behind the gates in Montecito. Prince Harry is not just losing his Hollywood deals, he is about to be systematically replaced in the one arena he thought he owned forever. And the fatal blow is being delivered by his own family. The brilliance of the royal family in this silent warfare lies in their absolute refusal to provide the Sussexes with the one thing they desperately need to survive, and that is new material. For the past 4 years, Harry and Meghan have built an entire commercial empire on grievance. Their currency is conflict. But when an institution simply stops fighting back, when they refuse to engage, issue denials, or offer any emotional reaction whatsoever, the machine starves. By quietly elevating Mike Tyndall and throwing the immense, unbothered weight of the Prince and Princess of Wales behind a rival streaming project, the palace is executing a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. They are not attacking Harry directly. They are simply making him irrelevant. They are proving that the institution does not need him to connect with veterans or the sporting world, and in doing so, they are neutralizing his final piece of public leverage. This brutal realization brings us to the deeply private psychological toll unfolding behind the gates of Montecito. A relationship built on an bias against the world narrative is intoxicating in the beginning. It provides a common enemy and a shared sense of righteousness. But that dynamic requires the world to keep caring. When the public outrage turns to public apathy and when the massive streaming deals dry up without being renewed, the external pressure inevitably turns inward. The foundation of their post-royal life was the promise of limitless commercial success and global adoration. As those pillars collapse, the internal dynamic of the marriage must bear an unimaginable weight. The weaponization of their victimhood was supposed to guarantee their freedom. Instead, it has backed them into a corner where their only remaining asset is a lifestyle brand selling jars of jam, a staggering downgrade from the global power players they positioned themselves to be. This isolation is compounded by the permanent nature of the familial rifts they have created. There is no coming back from the calculated exposure of private conversations, the television interviews, and the tell-all memoirs. The royal family has reportedly accepted that any communication with Prince Harry is a potential liability, a conversation that could easily end up in the next documentary or book chapter. Trust is not just broken, it has been entirely dismantled. Harry traded his family and his inherited support system for a commercial safety net that is now rapidly dissolving. The therapy and healing journey they have so publicly broadcasted is now facing its ultimate test in a real-time pressure cooker of their own making. If you look closely at the subtle shifts in the entertainment industry, the signs of this permanent freeze are everywhere. Hollywood is a highly transactional ecosystem. The elite power brokers initially bought into the Sussexes because of their proximity to the crown and the allure of untold secrets, but the industry has quickly realized that the couple is both commercially unreliable and incredibly difficult to manage. Unreturned phone calls, their glaring absence from top-tier red carpets, and the quiet cancellation of development deals are the subtle social signals that carry devastating, deeper meaning in Los Angeles. It is a slow, agonizing slide from global icons to industry cautionary tales. They are learning the hard way that infamy is not the same thing as influence. The most profound tragedy of this unfolding narrative centers entirely on the Invictus Games. This was the one arena where Prince Harry was undeniably brilliant, a space where his military background and his empathy felt entirely genuine. But as the Invictus board watches the rise of the Tyndall Project on Amazon Prime, they are faced with a cold corporate reality. They must protect the charity. If associating with Harry means alienating potential donors, dealing with constant media circuses, and watching their noble cause get overshadowed by personal branding disasters, a transition of power is inevitable. It will not happen overnight. It will be a slow, polite phasing out. Perhaps a co-patronage to start a reduction in his public speaking roles and eventually a quiet exit. For Harry, losing Invictus would not just be a PR disaster. It would be the loss of his remaining tether to the man he used to be before the collapse. Ultimately, this story resonates so deeply with the public because it is a classic, almost Shakespearean study in hubris. It is the devastating contrast between the illusion of absolute power and the harsh reality of commercial desperation. Viewers are captivated not out of simple malice, but because this saga exposes a fundamental moral contradiction. You cannot demand privacy while simultaneously monetizing every intimate detail of your life. You cannot preach compassion while systematically trying to destroy your own family on a global stage. The audience has watched the gap between what the Sussexes say and what they do widen into a chasm, and the current backlash is the natural, inevitable result of that hypocrisy being exposed. Going forward, we are not looking at a sudden, dramatic explosion, but rather a long, slow fade into obscurity. The couple will continue to launch new initiatives, each one slightly less prestigious than the last. They will attempt to rebrand, reposition, and rewrite the narrative. But the spell is broken. The tragic irony of Prince Harry's journey is that he burned down his entire life to escape a highly structured, demanding institution only to trap himself in a gilded cage of his own making. He is now entirely beholden to corporate overlords who are losing interest and a public that has finally stopped listening. He fought for his freedom, but in the end, he simply traded a palace for a prison of public opinion. Thank you for joining me as we unpacked the deeper layers of this ongoing story. If you found this forensic breakdown valuable, please take a moment to subscribe and leave your thoughts below. I would love to know how you interpret these subtle shifts in power. Until next time, stay sharp and look beyond the headlines.